You just write this down so I don't have to remember every time the order of things. Okay, city guest.
Hi, good evening. Welcome to the April regular meeting of the Sustainability and Climate Commission. It's great to see you all here, commissioners, co-chairs, and special guests and staff. I am Vivian Satterfield, your Chief Sustainability Officer. I use she, her, or my name as my pronouns, and it's wonderful to see you all here during Earth Month. So this is a special edition of the commission meeting tonight. For those of you who are in attendance in person, and thanks to those who are attending virtually, but we have something special for the in-person attendees. We have dinner available, so please do help yourself to dinner. And one day we will switch up what is served at this meeting, but for tonight it'll be fairly familiar to you all. I'll go ahead and hand this over to Co-Chair Jose to get us kicked off for tonight's evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Again, Co-Chair Jose Gamarra-Jorson, he, him, el pronouns. Next slide, please. And just to go over the agenda, but first, always Co-Chair Isa is here as well. We'll go on a little bit. The agenda overview, that's what we'll be working on. It's important today, the main thing is to finalize the letter to city leaders so that we can deliver in a timely fashion for them to have it for the city budget conversations. Next slide, please. Next slide. Start with meeting introductions and reminders. We'll review the notes about this meeting
Recording in progress.
and the working agreements. Next slide, please. The working agreements, can I have a volunteer? Oh, thank you. A volunteer to read the working agreements, please. Volunteer. Great. Commissioner Jessica.
Sure. Number one, speak with clarity and focus. 2, wait. Why am I talking? 3, assume good intentions, but attend to impact. 4, be willing to make mistakes and be forgiving of those who do. 5, allow for and appreciate disagreement of opinion, ideas, methods. Respectfully. 6, build on other people's ideas. 7, we value participation both in person and virtually.
Thank you, Commissioner Jessica. Next slide, please. Now we're on to public comment. Next slide. And for public comment, don't believe we have anyone signed up today. Nope, no one today. But as always, anyone can sign up to give public comment, or you could also send us an email. Next slide. Now we're on to the commission update. Next slide, please. Okay, commission updates. We have a few of them today. First, I'd like to invite the Chief Sustainability Officer back up, Vivian Satterfield, to give us her CSO report, and then I'll facilitate if anyone has any questions or discussion.
Great. Thank you so much, Co-Chair Jose. For the record, Vivian Satterfield, Chief Sustainability Officer. I have a number of updates for you. Again, happy Earth Month. The city of Portland had our kickoff to the Earth Month. There's a whole bunch of coordinated events. I'd really encourage you all to take a look at the city website. I know there's a number of community-based organizations as well that are hosting a number of events. So spring is here. The city feels alive. Things are popping off. Tons of things to do, but the city did have our own official kickoff to Earth Month with the Earth in Motion event this past Saturday, April 11th from 12 to 3 p.m. at Park Rose Middle School. Really want to appreciate all of you who participated. We had a number of commissioners volunteer their Saturday and spent the day with us tabling at the event and having what I know was great conversations. So again, thank you all for stepping up and making sure that the commission was very well represented in that space. Want to share some highlights. We had over 45 individual exhibitors sharing information and strategies and free resources in this really open, family-friendly event. I saw a steady stream of people coming through all day. It didn't seem like there was a peak or a drop off, but rather there's just, consistently a lot of community members showing up at a time that worked for their schedule to receive the great information. We again had free food all day from the food reclamation organization, Milk Crate Kitchen. so great to kind of show what that circular economy can look like, utilizing food. And I personally think we had the cutest cookies of any city event. Thanks again to the Bureau of Planning Sustainability, to PBOT, a number of the city service areas that really came together to demonstrate with Electric Alley the variety of electrified equipment and mobility options that we have within our city fleet. One of the things I thought was really cool was the heavy utility vehicle with the bucket on it that Urban Forestry uses to help keep our tree canopy nice and healthy. That's something I didn't know was able to be electrified. And I know that kind of demonstrated to the community and stretched the imagination of the different ways that you can electrify mobility, including what the city is doing to commit to our own climate commitments. We also hosted a Bike Town ribbon cutting with a really cool Bike Town station design from a Park Rose Middle School, or rather high school student, which was really lovely. And let's see what else. We had brief speeches because of course we were in District 1. So Councilors Avalos and Council President Dunphy were there to offer their comments, as well as the mayor was able to join us again in person and offer some of his comments, and the Park Rose superintendent. So really, lots of love from District 1. I also saw a community bike, actually I participated in the community bike ride throughout Park Rose neighborhood as well, and did see a few of our elected officials hop on those new Cosmo bikes as well, which was an absolute delight to see. So thank you all for helping to support and make that our second annual Earth Day event a true success. Pivoting a little bit to what's been happening across the street at City Council, wanted to share that we do have a new iteration of what council committees look like. So a lot of the purview for sustainability and climate issues used to be at the Climate Resilience and Land Use Committee. That committee has folded. City Council has reorganized a lot of their council structure, and now City Life and Committee of the Whole are the two committees where I can anticipate seeing more climate and sustainability conversations to take place. So those are the two that I'm sort of tracking the closest. City staff, of course, and sustainability staff are going to be tracking all the various conversations, but I just kind of wanted to highlight for you all, that's where I anticipate some of those conversations happening more frequently. And of course, we'll be utilizing my updates here at the commission meeting to make you all aware of that as well. So with that, I was invited to attend the inaugural meeting just this week of the City Life Committee. They had a number of panels and structured the panel conversations and invited me to participate on their Building Resilience panel. And so I offered up comments related to linking our energy strategy and resilience strategy. I helped share some comments around a concept of a Portland virtual power plant as a way of help building resiliency for not only our energy grid, but also addressing climate resilience within our community for increasing weather extremes that we're seeing. So Elaine will be able to share out some links to that. If you want to see the full panels, my comments were fairly brief, about 5 minutes, and a high-level overview. I thought that also it was complimentary to be on a panel alongside the Portland Clean Energy Fund co-chair Tracy Scott, who actually spoke just ahead of me and highlighted some really similar comments related to community resiliency, and from her perspective, the work that PSEF is involved with that. And then following my comments was a staff member from the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management also discussing resilience. So out of all the different panels, I thought that ours actually had a really nice through line and would be relevant to this commission's purview as well. And with that, that concludes my CSO update, and hand this back to the co-chairs. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Again, Jose Guimaro Georgeson. Did anyone have any questions or any discussion based on what you just heard in the CSO report? Okay. Yeah.
Commissioner Gregerson is District 2. No, a quick question. The disbanded council committee. I'm sorry. Why am I? I'm sorry. My apologies. The disbanded council committee, had it advanced anything on the climate agenda or action plan or done anything in its existence before it disbanded?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Gregg. Offhand, I do not have an example of something that the Climate Resilience and Land Use Committee advanced that was specifically pertaining to climate. I will say that because of the land use purview that that committee had, they saw a disproportionate number of land use conversations.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Gregg. Any other questions? Seeing none, just a little update on executive session. Commissioner Chinham had to step down from the commission, and congratulations to Commissioner Kyla Chen, who has been promoted and accepted a full commissioner position, so congratulations. And our bylaws committee met as well, and the bylaws are now in the final city attorney and CSO review stage, which is great. Much appreciation to everyone who was at bylaws getting through it. I know it's a slog to go through bylaws and kind of tweak it to kind of fit the group well, but I think the group that was there was really looking at everything with a good eye, and hopefully when we get the bylaws here, you will all see that as well. We should be voting on those in the May meeting. And the Policy and Implementation Committee also met and elected co-chairs. So congratulations, Commissioners Vivek and Charity, who are now the new co-chairs of the Policy and Implementation Committee. We also discussed priorities moving forward, transportation, heat. We talked a lot of different things about energy and just things that we might want to focus on in the future. We made no decisions yet, but we started the conversation going. At our May 5th meeting, the Chief Sustainability Officer will be discussing the city priorities and then translating some of the commission priorities into city actions. Commissioner Vivek, Commissioner Charity, is there anything you would like to add to this part, actually? Go ahead.
Oh, Commissioner Vivek, District 2. If there's anything that you're thinking about on your mind, we had a discussion already about what would be priorities for the commission to raise up for the Policy and Implementation Committee. We're all ears. So just email the city email, or happy to chat as well. As long as we're just a couple of people, I think that should be fine. But yeah, happy to meet with you. I think Commissioner Charity would probably feel the same way. So I want to speak for her, but yeah, if there's things coming up in terms of priorities, please feel free to reach out. We'll be reporting back to you, I think, every session maybe, about things that are coming up for us.
Thank you. Yeah, we usually have at least an update at every meeting, so. Thank you. And now I'll pass it over to Co-Chair Issa.
This is Co-Chair Issa. So for the youth framework, our first draft was debuted at the Earth in Motion event. So it's also linked on the Power of the Youth Retreat website. And so youth members will meet with incoming youth members for the next cohort to continue the work we do. And Commissioner Celeste will actually be part of the next youth cohort as a sort of through line. And are there any questions about that? Next slide. So for the agenda now, we're going to be talking about the climate justice audit and the city administrator's response. Next slide. So tonight we have staff from the auditor's office who conducted the performance audit we're discussing and responding to tonight, titled Climate Justice, Clear Direction, Strategies, and Transparency Needed to Follow Through on the City's Climate Commitments. Then CSO Vivian is also going to discuss the city administrator's response to the audit. And I'd like to introduce Audit Services Director Casey Jones and Senior Performance Auditor Jessica Lange. Thank you for your work and being here tonight.
Thank you for having us.
And I'll hand it over to them to share their presentation.
Too many things open right now.
While Casey is pulling up our presentation, I can do some introductions. My name is Jessica Lang. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a performance auditor in our auditor's office.
Thank you. My name is Casey Jones. I'm the Audit Services Director in the City Auditor's Office, and I use he, him pronouns. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us tonight. We're here today to brief you on our climate justice audit work. The official report was released in February, including our audit process, how we had arrived at our findings and recommendations, and then we'll have the opportunity for questions and discussion. I did want to note that Ingrid did share a draft of your letter with us. Things like that are really important for making our recommendations happen. So we're always trying to push the city to make change, but we have very little enforcement ability ourselves. So the existence of groups like yours and participation in the form of support for recommendations, support for implementation is really important in making the things happen and making them happen fast. So, you know, we do have a follow-up process where we follow up on the status of our recommendations every year for 5 years. But that's only as good as there are more people than us actually interested in it. So I really appreciate that and your time tonight. So I'm going to go zoom out a little bit and go back to share a little bit about how we select topics for our audit schedule. So our annual audit schedule is released each June. We develop the schedule by collecting ideas for potential audits all year long. We have an online forum where the public can suggest topics. Auditors themselves may identify potential topics while conducting audits. We also engage with city officials and other city leaders to understand what issues are most important to them and their constituents. We share a listing of topics under consideration with the public and community groups through a survey. And then we conduct a focus group to understand which programs and services they would most like to see audited and whether there's specific areas where community members are able to either contribute their experiences to an audit or maybe highlight an aspect of a topic that impacts them the most. And then we meet as an audit team to discuss potential topics and analyze them based on a variety of risk categories. This topic, climate justice, was added to our audit schedule in fiscal year 22-23 and then refined to focus on climate justice in fiscal year 23-24 with audit work beginning in early 2024. And this is a graphic showing kind of an overview of how our audit process works. So audits start with a planning phase. During that phase, we may have, you know, a little bit of background on why this was a topic of interest, but it may be as broad as we want to see what the city is doing about climate justice. So during that phase, we learn a lot about the audit topic in a broad sense. We're identifying areas that may warrant further attention, and then we are trying to decide on our audit objective. So that's a question that we want to answer through our audit fieldwork. During the fieldwork phase, we gather evidence to answer the audit objective, which leads to developing our audit findings. Fieldwork can be any combination of more in-depth interviews, more extensive outreach, data review, data analysis, those sorts of things. And then during the reporting phase, we include our audit findings and recommendations in a full public report. To ensure the accuracy of our final report, we complete an independent review process. We collect and implement feedback from bureaus and or offices that were audited. And our final report for the climate justice audit was published on February 25th, 2026, and also includes the city administrator's official response to the audit. The last phase, which I alluded to earlier, is the follow-up phase. So that starts after a year. We'll follow up on the status of recommendations each year for 5 years. We track recommendation statuses in our publicly available dashboard. And then we also publish an annual audit impact report. which highlights progress and work of the city overall, and then maybe some common challenges and what more the city could achieve by implementing outstanding recommendations from our audits. So I'll turn it over to Jessica to start discussing our audit objective.
So our audit examined the following objectives. How has the city prioritized and coordinated climate actions within the 2022 climate emergency work plan? To what extent has the city considered impacts to community for the 2022 climate emergency work plan? And to what extent has the city integrated community involvement into its climate action work for the 2022 climate emergency work plan? Next slide. Oh, sorry. So during our planning and fieldwork phases, we gathered evidence by interviewing management and staff involved in climate work at the city. And we also talked with community-based organizations that represented frontline communities and community-based organizations focused on climate work, as well as a business organization. We also reviewed documentation related to community feedback on the city's climate work, community-created regional climate goals, and citywide and bureau level planning documents. We also reviewed the 2020 Climate Emergency Declaration and the 2022 Climate Emergency Work Plan, as well as the associated progress reports. And we also reviewed best practices for climate planning and government management. We used the best practices that we reviewed as audit criteria. We want to take a moment to identify the specific best practices that we referenced, since these could be useful for the Commission's future work. So we used climate-specific best practices as criteria from UN Habitat, C40 Cities, the federal government, and the National Association of Climate Resilience Planners. We also use criteria for government management that we use for many of our audits, such as COSO and Government Finance Officers Association. And we want to highlight that the C40 Climate Action Planning Guide is a great source that translates best practices into actions and could be a particularly good reference for the Sustainability and Climate Commission for its work on implementing the recommendations from this audit.
So Jessica mentioned all the criteria that we looked at. Our government auditing standards kind of requires us to consider our findings using the rubric set up here. So these are the elements of a finding. After we completed our review of documents, interviews, and other tasks during the fieldwork phase, we went through the process outlined here to help us formulate conclusions. So those conclusions are used to develop our audit findings. These elements are outlined in our government auditing standards that we're required to abide to. So we identify the condition. So that is what's the problem? What's going on here? The effects of that condition, what's happening because this is different from the criteria. So the criteria is the imagined perfect state. It's the law. It's a best practice. It's that sort of thing. We are always seeking to understand what has maybe caused that disconnect, and then why that's important. And then in our recommendations, we are seeking to make recommendations that resolve the condition, so the immediate state, and then resolve that underlying cause that would speak to why it happens.
So next we have an overview of our audit results. So we make 5 total recommendations in this audit. The first 2 are directed to the city administrator or designee, and the last 3 are designated to the chief sustainability officer and engagement officer to work with the Sustainability and Climate Commission to implement changes. And because of the focus of those last 3 recommendations, those are the ones that we're really going to focus on for this presentation. So we found that centralized authority and defined coordination structures could help the city follow through on climate commitments. We found that city leadership did not effectively authorize a mechanism to hold bureaus accountable for climate work. The 2022 plan also does not clearly define an organizational structure for bureaus to coordinate on climate work. The city's transition to a new form of government presents an opportunity to formalize organizational structures for coordinating future climate work. And to address this result and ensure the city follows through on climate commitments, we recommend that the city administrator or a designee should provide centralized leadership and direction to help ensure the climate action plan is implemented. The city administrator or a designee should also help define structures and mechanisms for effective coordination across the city to implement the plan. Our next finding was that a realistic funding plan could help the city prioritize its climate work. Ongoing financial constraints make it challenging for the city to fund its climate work. Focusing on climate action while making budget decisions is one of the city's stated values, but it is not fully integrated into the city's current budget process. The best practice of climate budgeting could help to ensure there's a realistic funding plan for climate work and delivering the intended benefits. To address this result and ensure the city follows through on climate commitments, we recommend that the city administrator, in conjunction with the mayor and other city leadership, should factor in climate cost considerations, especially related to delayed action with respect to life and safety risks, as well as financial costs during the city's budget process. Moving into our third result, developing a climate adaptation strategy could help the city more effectively address community impacts, especially for the most vulnerable. The 2022 plan does not have specific goals for climate adaptation or making communities more resilient to impacts of climate change. By contrast, the 2022 plan specified goals for climate mitigation, which means reducing planet warming emissions. Those goals include reducing planet warming emissions by 50% by 2030 and reaching net zero planet warming emissions by 2050. The city conducts climate adaptation work like expanding tree planting, but a defined strategy could help improve effectiveness. We heard that climate adaptation actions were a last-minute addition to the 2022 plan, and management and staff from multiple bureaus told us that more focus is needed in this area. A climate change risk assessment and input from community groups can help the city to identify effective goals and strategies for helping to make communities more resilient. To address this result and to more effectively address community climate impacts, we recommend that the Chief Sustainability Officer should work with the Sustainability and Climate Commission to ensure the new climate action plan includes goals and strategies to address climate adaptation in a way that is integrated with work focused on climate mitigation. The results of the climate change risk assessment and community engagement should help inform this work. Our next result is that increased transparency could help build trust with external groups and ensure climate actions are implemented. It's important for climate action planning to be transparent because there are many groups with an interest in or ability to influence climate action. Transparency helps to build trust, which is especially important because frontline communities most impacted by climate change have been harmed by the city's actions in the past. Transparently communicating how the city chooses and prioritizes climate actions could help build trust by demonstrating that decision-making is fair in how actions were chosen. It's best practice to use a multi-criteria assessment of actions to identify the actions that advance multiple goals or have trade-offs. Planning and Sustainability told us that it had an internal strategy for assessing the multiple criteria to choose actions and prioritized actions by focusing on what was within the city's authority to implement. But the strategy was not communicated in the 2022 plan. And describing climate actions in more detail could also help ensure internal and external groups have enough information to implement actions. Climate actions from the 2022 plan lack sufficient detail about timeframes, costs, and responsibilities. The city previously communicated about the 2022 plan through public progress reports in a series of public conversations before the plan expired in 2025. Bureaus are still working to carry out most of the actions, but there are not plans currently to continue communicating the progress on those actions, and more transparency may be needed in this area. To address this result and to build trust with external groups and enable achieving climate goals, we recommend that the Chief Sustainability Officer should work with the Sustainability and Climate Commission to develop a prioritization framework that ensures the next climate action plan is transparent about how actions in the plan were chosen and prioritized. while continuing to monitor progress on the climate emergency work plan until the new plan is in place. The new plan should provide sufficient detail to facilitate Bureau actions and coordination, and transparently communicate the multiple criteria to enable identifying actions that advance several goals at once or that may benefit one goal while creating trade-offs for another. And in our final results, we found that a community engagement strategy could help the city achieve its climate goals. Engaging the community is critical to the success of climate action plans. The city included limited community input while developing the 2022 plan, but did use engagement from the 2020 Climate Emergency Declaration to inform the plan. Management told us that they focused on engaging community for policy work over plan development due to limited resources. Managers and staff also told us about frustration from both staff and community when the city attempted to engage more fairly between the 2015 and 2022 plan. And that frustration was because there was a lack of clarity about how to move forward. Management and staff described improvements since then, but acknowledged the community would like more. Opportunities for improvement include sharing more climate work information with the community, clarifying how community groups can engage in climate work, involving community groups in decision-making, fairly compensating for time, and reducing burden by incorporating information that the community has already shared. Developing a strategy to address engagement challenges can help community engagement to be more meaningful and have more impact. Clear expectations and transparent communication could help address past issues of not knowing how to move forward. And the Sustainability and Climate Commission structure offers a new opportunity for engaging community for the next climate action plan. To address this result and to build trust with external groups and enable achieving climate goals, we recommend that the engagement officer and the chief sustainability officer should work with the Sustainability and Climate Commission to develop a community engagement strategy that enables community engagement, especially among frontline communities at all stages of climate action work. The strategy should consider whether community groups receive adequate resources for their involvement and integrate work the community has already been involved in. And we wanted to share links to the sections of our audit criteria that may be helpful resources as you work on implementing recommendations 3 through 5. So these specific sections on the slide from the C40 Climate Action Planning Guide and UN Habitat Guiding Principles for City Climate Action Planning contain more information and really talk about translating best practices into actions. And now we want to turn it over to the commission for any questions or thoughts that you'd like to share.
Commissioner Carla.
Commissioner Carla, she, her. You mentioned about a climate change risk assessment, and I don't know if that question would be for them, that is currently in progress. I was wondering more about that, like who is developing, if we're gonna be participating in that in any aspect. Yeah.
Thank you for the question, Vivian Satterfield, Chief Sustainability Officer. You'll be hearing more in our discussion later today about the climate change risk assessment, but briefly, city staff are conducting that alongside the Oregon Climate Change Research Institute, and we're planning to publish it in October of this year. More details to come.
Thank
you. Commissioner Vivek.
Hi, Commissioner Vivek, District 2. I'm curious, a little context, being the auditor's office. Do you have examples of past audits that have led to city operation changes? And if so, what form did they take, especially when they're involving a resident community commission like this?
Yeah, so this is probably something that we have gotten into more recently as part of the city's transition. You know, bread and butter auditing, the things that like colleagues in other cities like know how to do is like, hey, how's the city's fleet? Like, is it there? How are people using their purchase cards? Like a lot of municipal functions. So to look at something that is a very important concept that the city is committed to, and what that looks like in operation is, I think, something that is a little newer in our field. Our field grew out of accounting, frankly. So we are looking right now during the city's transition for functions that otherwise may have been kind of well siloed off, or like our first finding refers to, are things that there was maybe a lack of structure or authority around, like getting action toward. We don't normally have things. We did look at PSEF a few years ago, another kind of unique situation where community members are involved in decision making, and definitely kind of drew some lessons there. That one was successful in that we highlighted areas where they needed to clarify some things that had started from the ballot measure and had changed in implementation. And the folks working in PSEF had great reasons for why they were operationalized maybe differently than it was written in the ballot. And you know, where we ended up was, this is a relatively new thing. They're figuring it out as they go along. It's a very unique structure. So just reporting back to council on how that is going, and changing and kind of affirming some of the structure around it will help with you know, the arguments of this is or isn't what I voted for, that sort of thing. So that's the most recent example. But yeah, this where we're also just started an audit on citywide equity. So another area where the city has an equity office, they have an equity officer, but what does that actually look like kind of when spread out in this case in a climate plan for the whole city? Thanks.
One thing that I'll add to that is that we're also very intentional when we make our recommendations. So we're directing them to city leadership and city management. So we recognize that the Sustainability and Climate Commission are not going to be the direct people responsible for implementing, and that it's really on city management to be able to work with you all to help implement the recommendations.
Commissioner Greg.
Yeah, Commissioner Greg, District 2, thank you. Thank you for your work on this and digging into this. I guess I want to understand a little bit better the protocol for follow-ups, the tracking, you mentioned several times performance metrics and dashboards, things like that. The city has a lot of dashboards. A lot of things are tracked. I'm not sure how much follow-up there is in those things. What is the role of the auditor's office in going back and sort of seeing what got done and what didn't get done before you move on to your next umpteen projects?
Sure. So we, in the response that I think Vivian will talk about is twofold. So usually there is a letter from the city administrator saying, yes, we agree that this is very important to us. Here's why. And then the supplement to that is, for each recommendation, what is the corrective action that you'll pursue, and what's your timeline for that? So that's kind of our jumping off point for a follow-up request a year later, to say, okay, how is that going? What barriers are you experiencing? And then we determine whether recommendations have been implemented, are in process, or have not been started. And then those are the elements, along with a narrative provided by the responsible party, city administrator or Vivian, about, hey, this is what we have done in the last year. This is the next step we would be planning to take. So all of that's on our dashboard. We do, like I said, we do ask what things are maybe getting in the way of implementation, and we roll that up into a audit impact report for the whole city saying, hey, the budget capacity is really impacting a bunch of these things, or water and sewer is not doing this one thing because they had to, all their effort is being put into Bull Run or whatever other thing they're working on. So kind of competing priorities, that sort of thing. Through that process, there is some back and forth. We don't just say, sure, you said it was done, so it's done. We do require evidence. We try not to have it be kind of a full reopening of the project, but if there is something we would like to see it completed, we'd like to see, hey, what was that shared with council? You know, the kind of steps that we're committed to in that initial response.
Could I follow up on that question, just one aspect of what he just said, of the answer to that? Is that okay, Commissioner Issa?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you, Commissioner Gray again. I looked in the city administrator's response at the recommendations and the timeline for most of it seemed to be 2 years out for 2028. Would you characterize that as aggressive, conservative, typical? How would you characterize that? Thank you.
That seems I would say fairly typical, maybe a little aggressive for something that is relatively new. But in the new form of government, we do have situations where we put out a audit on asset management. They said, hey, yes, we will have that done by 2028, and council said, actually, we would like to move that up a year. So there is maybe a little bit of back and forth there. And some of the things can change. It doesn't mean that we wait 2 years before we bother to follow up. It helps us to have like at least a little bit of narrative about initial steps that have been taken, that sort of thing.
Commissioner Stephanie.
Commissioner Stephanie Kaza, District 3, she, her pronouns. I wonder if you could spell out a little bit more what you mean by the word community, which is a really important word here. And I maybe this is old school thinking, but it used to be public engagement, public, et cetera. And why I bring that up because community could be an organized nonprofit, it could be a religious group, it could be a neighborhood, or what if it's just random people? So how do you, and we don't know that much, or I don't anyway about the community engagement office yet. So if you can illuminate all of the, something about the variables and how you reach out to what we think we mean by community. And I mention that partly because just as a point of fact, the frontline communities apparently don't include seniors or elders. And I just would like to suggest that as a possible inclusion in the future. Even though they don't get terribly organized, sorry to say.
Yeah, for this audit, we really focused on the definition of climate justice. And so for climate justice, community is kind of at the forefront. And while, yes, there's a focus on frontline communities, that doesn't mean that all community is not important in that as well. So in terms of what we conceptualized as community for reaching out to, we have some community groups that we have relationships with as our auditor's office. And that's not to say that that's the only limitation. That's just who we decided to reach out to. But there are, as you were saying, a lot of different groups that would be considered community. And I do think that they are all valid to be thinking about for a community engagement strategy.
Commissioner Dana.
Thank you, Commissioner Dana, District 4. First, thanks so much for the report. It was really readable, very succinct, and very clear, and not too long, which is nice. I wanted to ask, you mentioned climate budgeting, and I'm curious, you know, as a best practice, like what that looks like and how it differs from maybe what the city is doing. And then second, like from your read on existing sort of staffing and resources for a lot of this work, knowing what's ahead, what goals and commitments have been made, how far off are existing sort of staffing allocations for this work from your kind of perspective?
Great question. So I will say that I would not consider myself an expert on climate budgeting. From the best practices, the description of climate budgeting that I have here. It means really to embed your climate targets and considerations while you're making your decisions for the city's regular budget process. So that would be looking at what are the costs of not addressing climate? Are there financial costs? Are there life, health, and safety costs? And in terms of what the city is doing now, I would say that they don't have a framework for doing so, even though it's one of their stated values. And then to your second point about staffing and resources, that's not something that we necessarily covered during this audit, but we do recognize that there are definitely financial struggles and financial challenges that a realistic funding plan would help with addressing that. But I don't know, Casey, would you like to add more?
Yeah, it's something that we talked a lot about near the end of our project. We do share our results with the auditee to kind of hone in on how doable the recommendations are. So that recommendation, I think, kind of raised some flags for folks in the city as like this would be a lot that's a very technical area, and we can't do that by ourselves, so sort of thing. So we have just in the last couple of years also done work around city's approach to asset management. So the lifetime of its facilities, the parks, any structure or vehicle that it owns and maintains, and found some kind of lack of strategy around how to account for maintenance and things like approaching the end of their life. So there already is a kind of big project underway to figure out how to incorporate a lot of that information. So that we saw as maybe an opportunity to join this idea in with that, which, you know, the city needing to catch up, I guess, in budgeting in other areas. Introducing this idea is something we were hoping could line up with that.
Commissioner Jessica?
Hi, Commissioner Jessica, District 1, she, her. Piggybacking a little bit on Commissioner Stephanie and Commissioner Vivek's question on community, I'm curious if, especially when we're thinking about the community engagement strategy, do you have examples either from other places within the city or, you know, in the research that you did and in the evaluation where there are particular strategies that you found to be standout, or, you know, hey, they're really PBOT's really crushing it, you know, on their approach to community engagement, as a, for instance, just in terms of things that could be also deployed within this realm?
Yeah, so as part of our audit work, we didn't really delve into specific examples of good community engagement strategies. I would say that part of the rationale for directing the recommendation to the engagement officer would be to bring in some of that knowledge about what is happening successfully across the city. And for them to bring their expertise into that recommendation implementation.
And then we add in the aspects of those best practices that we thought were most important, to kind of make sure that those things are either prioritized or accounted for. With that recommendation in particular, we also wanted to recognize that there is a body of work that has been done. That this is not intended to be a go redo all the work that's been done in the last 20 years to engage with community and learn from them and see what they want. I think in just paying attention to how the city does community engagement, it is a lot of brainstorm, like kind of tell us your ideas about any or a variety of topics. So we tried to make it more specific to areas where we thought some value could be added. And if that information is already out there, y'all don't have to reinvent the wheel.
All right, and one last question, Commissioner Alina.
Hi, Commissioner Alina, District 2, she, her pronouns. Thank you so much for taking the time to read this out and share with us. My question goes back to what Greg was asking about regarding the annual follow-ups. I'm just curious, just looking back at past annual follow-ups and what has been successful in terms of identifying with the identified challenges and barriers, how have folks been able to get the support that they're asking for, whether it's budget or resource or just, I guess, a pathway to get things moving?
Yeah, like I said, I think our goal is to recommend things that are achievable. So we did spend time, you know, trying to figure out the right recommendation to address what I think is every city's problem, you know? So some of the things around community engagement, the recommendations that are that you all are included in can be helped by the earlier recommendations around structure, authority, and budgeting. Those things can only benefit you all. So it is kind of purposely ordered in that way. And we talked with Vivian and folks from BPS and City Administrator's Office around a lot of that stuff being things that they can do themselves relatively quickly. Honestly, having a champion is important. The asset management work that I spoke about earlier, I think is only getting done because there are asset managers from across bureaus across the city working together to deal with it. But there is no chief asset manager or person pushing this across the city. In this form of government, that's kind of the thing that is needed. So that person can say, I'm the spokesperson for this issue, and I'm going to tell you what I need to get it done. A lot of issues don't have that kind of singular focus. So they had been kind of disparately spread throughout bureaus before with nobody like, oh, you know, yeah, maybe Peabot's really good at this, but like no incentive to go talk to them about it or for the city to figure it all out on its own. So I think there are a lot of reasons why right now is a time with a lot of opportunity for issues like climate justice, equity, things that have been kind of spread across the city to get more focus with somebody reporting directly to the city administrator.
Okay, now for our actual last question, Commissioner Maya.
Yeah, Commissioner Maya D2. I had a question about the budgeting again. I was wondering, do you have any idea of about costs of delayed action, delayed until when? Is there guidance about how those calculations are made, or it's done retrospectively?
That's not something that we particularly looked into. I would say the best practices may have some more information about that. So this specific best practice is from C40 cities. I would hope that they would have more information.
Thanks.
All right, now I'd like to hand it over to CSO Vivian. And thank everyone for the questions.
For the record, Vivian Satterfield, Chief Sustainability Officer. At this time, this is going to be just a brief overview. The city administrator agreed with all of the audit recommendations. You should have read that and previewed that in preparation for today. And the city administrator acknowledges that while we have a constrained and significantly challenging budget year, both for us here and also I will note for the auditor's office as well, it does impact them as well ahead of us. The city administrator did acknowledge that without additional resources, climate justice work does risk being largely symbolic as it has been in the past. That acknowledgement was explicitly made. And the city administrator drafted a response that includes an implementation plan that we'll discuss today. I do appreciate the question that sort of asked, you know, is this aggressive? Is this typical? The one thing that comes to mind for me that I'll just offer is that the city's first climate goal that we must reach for benchmarking is in 2030, which is only four years away. And I know that that timeline weighs extremely heavily on the minds of the city's climate practitioners and for yourselves as well, in order for us to benchmark our progress on the path to net zero by 2050. So I think there's a healthy tension between the urgency of the work that we have ahead of us and, you know, like our climate practitioners have shared with us before, we're not on target currently to meet that goal. Frankly, nobody is. And so there's that healthy tension between, you know, how aggressive can our progress be and how are we going to meet some of our own benchmarks. There is an immense amount of information within the audit and the city administrator's response that will guide us through the development of the next climate action plan. Some of those questions have already begun bubbling up. And so I look forward after the break to kind of digging in a little bit more to that. And so the briefing today really was that overview. I'm so grateful for both Jessica and Casey for being able to come across the street and be able to engage in this overview, offer you all the briefing, and then be willing to engage in this healthy Q&A to help clarify those questions. So we will dig into the details of the recommendations as we enact them. Oh, I guess we're doing this before the break, pardon me. And so what I'd like to do is actually frame some of these recommendations more in the opportunities and challenges that I see from my perspective here. So in alignment with recommendation 1, which is advising the centralized leadership, accountability, and coordination, the opportunity that I see here is really that we have so many subject matter experts with direct linkages to the work already that I have the ability to coordinate and to pull into my sphere of influence. I'll go ahead and offer. And so while the designation of the climate leads is still ongoing and requires a lot of coordination with decision makers, I've been able to already help bring together climate practitioners in a more informal manner. And I look forward to going ahead and formalizing those structures. I also think that there's opportunity with obviously clarifying the scope of the sustainability office and how to try to find, try to find ways that we can be embedded in every single service area. Some of the challenges, and you're going to hear this as a pretty constant refrain, but I couldn't underscore it enough how severe the city's budgetary challenges are and are foreshadowed, projected to be in these upcoming years, especially with the significant disinvestment of our federal government, especially explicitly attacking climate and sustainability issues. So budget challenges, additionally, some of the core service realignments that are happening at the city as well have truly stretched capacity that has existed in the service areas. And what that happens in bureaus, it naturally, there's an inclination and a reluctance to add one more thing. I just have to recognize that, you know, we're all people, right? And so when we're at a time of constrained resources, when we're at a time of feeling really stretched, there is this natural inclination to feel that working on a larger coordinated project just does feel like one additional thing. So that kind of underscores the importance of having that centralized authority, leveraging, the bureaucracy, the top-down infrastructure that we do have here at the city in order to kind of emphasize and help prioritize what the city's goals are. I'm going to go ahead and just move us on because I think all my notes here just sort of continue to talk about how dire the situation really is. It's very much in the front of minds, especially because we are in budget season right now. Next slide, please. For recommendation 2 in discussing climate budgeting and cost considerations in the city budget, I appreciate some of the questions and answers that you all raised and responses from the city auditor talking about climate budgeting. As staff, we've done a number of participatory webinars and other learnings learning about climate budgeting. There are a number of different forms of climate budgeting that currently exist in different models, both internationally and nationally. And so I think there is an opportunity to think about climate in every budget. Again, there are different models of climate budgeting, and we're still examining what could best be the fit for Portland, Oregon. I have a sneaking suspicion we're probably going to do a separate, different thing that's going to fit for Portland, just knowing who we are. But there is a vision, and I have initiated some preliminary conversations with the folks in charge of budgeting to sort of imagine what that can look like for us. Some of the challenges here are, as the audit has highlighted, the economic risks. Either waste or missed co-benefits, missed revenue generating opportunities. And I think that, because of the city's, difficulty with our budgets and initiating a 5-year plan to offer some stabilization to the city budget, it's going to be a significant challenge for us to, kind of reimagine what that can look like. But again, that's also an opportunity. Next slide, please. In terms of recommendation 3 and the integration of mitigation adaptation to the next climate action plan, I appreciate the question regarding the climate change risk assessment that is currently undergoing. The project manager that I've designated for that project actually happens to be here in the room this evening, Kyle Diesner from the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. You'll remember Kyle from a lot of the work that he's presented around our carbon emissions. And so Kyle is working with some of those aforementioned subject matter experts that are embedded in various bureaus to start working on workshops and really to help define what a climate change risk assessment can look like for the city of Portland. We are also doing this in coordination with the Oregon Climate Change Research Institute. They're also a research institute of climate scientists, climatologists. They produce reports for the state of Oregon as well. So we really see them as technical experts who can help us in developing our own climate risk profile for the city of Portland. I can preview for you all, it's a pretty grim process that we're looking at, but can preview for you that, a lot of the things that we hear from our community that it's front of mind when they think about climate, such as urban heat. We're also seeing some of the evidence of that in our preliminary findings. And again, as I mentioned before, the CCRA is planning to be released in October of 2026 or thereabouts. And I truly see that as being that scientifically backed foundational chapter to help build the climate action plan from. In terms of community engagement, I look forward to defining community engagement strategies and opportunities. I think there's been a wealth of ideas and some really interesting conversation that's already been bubbling up here this evening. So I look forward to defining what that looks like alongside you all, and also with my counterpart, the engagement officer. And we'll also just offer that just because the city performance office was referenced in this recommendation, that office is just being stood up now too. So there's all these emerging opportunities of things that are just getting started, just being stood up. And of course, pending the city's budget and the passage of that will help us sort of see what those investments will look like and what kind of supports we'll have in order to enact some of these recommendations. So again, I'm thinking about timeline. For me, what seems really front of mind right now is, this current city budget. But of course, we are climate practitioners and all of you are really thinking about the long term. So when I think about the climate change risk assessment, that's something that's projecting out, to 2100, a time frame I can't even imagine what the world is going to be like in that time. And yet we're also dealing with the reality of today and seeing what things are going to look like on the other side of the city budget. And the challenge I wanted to highlight here was just staff capacity, which is an evergreen challenge. And again, some of those factors. Next slide here. So the challenge I really saw here that I wanted to highlight was that the collection of data regarding especially the climate emergency work plan has typically been delegated to the Bureau of Planning Sustainability staff. That is a rather large undertaking in order to coordinate citywide and across the service areas in order to do some of that monitoring. And so a challenge is going to be for us to continue thinking about how to bridge this in-between time from the old form of government and some of those older plans, but the actions are still evergreen and relevant to our work now. One of the challenges is going to be defining the mechanisms for that with the multi-criteria prioritization framework that we'll be engaging here to develop with all of you. So I look to the Sustainability and Climate Commission and the Policy and Implementation Committee to really help support some of these ideas in developing the next actionable CAP. Next slide, please, to talk about recommendation 5 around community engagement. Gosh, I think this is also an evergreen opportunity here, which is that we have truly a wealth of knowledge and a really activated community. Like this is a community. I'm truly speaking of Portlanders. We should not forget that the phase 2 work of charter reform is actually what elevated the importance of climate and environmental justice, and actually what helps support the role that I'm in, the Chief Sustainability Officer role, to be elevated to the City Administrator's office. So clearly we can leverage that, a great interest within the city of Portland, of Portlanders who care so deeply about climate and justice issues, who are already activated around that. I also wanted to just explicitly acknowledge the long history and link between two significant, planning organizations, the City of Portland and Multnomah County, in climate action planning. And so, want to just highlight, not to put you on the spot, but Commissioner Dan's participation on this commission is actually helping us to strengthen the linkage that already exists between Multnomah County and the City of Portland in our climate action planning. The work of the climate justice plan that Multnomah County is leading is work that actually the city has invested in, not only monetarily supporting it through an investment that the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability offered, but also through allocating staff time and staff investment in there in order to explicitly affirm that there's a link between that work. And so I look forward to continuing to strengthen that link between climate justice, between community engagement, looking at the robust plans that exist within our community, and working alongside all of you as commissioners to define what those community engagement strategies can look like, because obviously you're also here because of the linkages that you have in your communities. You wouldn't be here if you weren't activated around these issues. And so looking forward to opportunities that we can talk about, to think about, is this something where we help prepare a briefing in a box that you can go to, the communities that you're a part of, and sharing out what's happening at the Sustainability and Climate Commission, or a facilitated conversation. These are just some ideas that I, look forward to engaging you all to sort of hear what would best serve you in helping to support the community engagement that the climate justice audit recommends that we do. A challenge I do want to offer here, and I think Casey and Jessica alluded to this towards the end of some of their presentation, is the realignment of core services right now at the city, which explicitly also realigns equity and engagement practitioners. So there's a little bit of a tension here in which Portlanders want more engagement. The audit asks us to do more engagement, and yet the very experts and the people who do this work fast day in and day out are being realigned, and in some cases reduced as well. So I just want to kind of offer that acknowledgement and tension that exists. With that, I think there's some time for questions and answers and discussion. I don't know if I have any answers, but. And due to time, I think this unfortunately may have to be brief. So if there's a question in the room. Yes, Commissioner Vivek.
Hi, Commissioner Vivek, D2. I'm trying to connect the presentation with your remarks just now, Vivian, and part of, I guess, what I'm trying to think about is this commission, along with your office, isn't the only entity in the city, and BPS isn't the only entity working on these topics. And you'd called out this commission specifically and CSO office. So I guess I'm just thinking like, how does this align, like, I'm trying to think through, like, are there thoughts about how all the other entities that could align with the community engagement, could align with budget issues, could align with the budget, climate budget um, in all policies or climate policy in all budgets, how does that work exactly? Like, what could we do with that? Could multiple commissions come together or members of this commission meet with other city volunteer commissions or like, I'm just trying to think through that this is these are big lifts and as now co-chairing the policy and implementation committee, I'm kind of like, holy bleep, like, what am I gonna do with this? And just trying to think through how do I kind of bring this up to the rest of the city and not make this commission's like putting ourselves up for a pretty tall order, I guess.
Yeah, I appreciate that question, Commissioner Vivek. So deep breath. We're going to do it one step at a time. We're going to tackle it together, one strategy at a time. I share your concern and the weight of the enormity of the task ahead of us, especially when we're trying to address something as existential as the impacts of human-caused climate change on ourselves and our community, not just for this generation, but for future generations of Portlanders. So yes, the enormity of the task ahead of us weighs heavily on my mind. This is something that I think that my position, being a part of the city leadership team, reporting directly to the city administrator, is now a shared responsibility that amongst all the competing priorities, I see my role as being there to offer about the connections that climate has everywhere. Much like my comments to the City Life Committee when we met, climate is a part of every single thing. And what this audit highlights is that we no longer can afford the siloed conversations or expect a bureau to laterally hold accountable another bureau's staff for doing so. Again, we're in a hierarchy and in a bureaucracy. People sometimes only move when there's the top-down directive. You will. And so in the infancy of this new form of government, in the infancy of the Sustainability and Climate Commission, we will figure out together where we can tackle it. I am here alongside you all to offer guidance, to offer recommendations and support to the mayor, the city administrator, and to city council. I would encourage you all to think back to what's currently embedded in Portland City Code about the powers and duties that this commission has and its ability to hold joint meetings, ability to ask for presentations in front of it. And so I know that even though we've only been meeting for 7 or so months, that's not a lot of time to try to figure out how you're going to flex all of your powers, much like a 7-month-old, right? Just trying to figure out at what point it's going to be able to stand up and start moving forward. So give it time. We're all ready to run, but together we're going to figure out how to take those next steps.
Thank you, everyone. Now it's time for a break and I will see when we have to come back because the next slide will tell us. It's up 7:20. The break has gotten shorter because we went a little over time, but so please come back at 7:20. Thank you.
The counselors, they all have their meetings.
Yeah.
On that, try to go to some of those meetings, and speak about the climate.
Yeah.
Say this is
So nice to have it be light
No, I
out.
think that's a really good.
No,
yeah,
I think over there.
and intersect somehow. Maybe that's something.
Okay, ready?
It was the first thing that I noticed that was Brian.
We go to this meeting. and talk about-
Welcome back, everyone. Can everyone come back, please? So we can
Wanted to
start
park in the
again.
bus or the train after, but I was waiting for this.
Suggest.
I didn't want to do it in the dark. But it should be pretty easy to do, so
Yes.
I'm not in a rush.
Our next item is gonna work on the finalizing the letter from us to the mayor. And we don't have that much time, so I wanna make sure we get through it. The letters to the mayor, the city council, and the city administrator as in response to the audit we just heard all about. We only have till 7:55. So we need to be as timely and as quickly as possible. This letter will do its most good if it gets there in time for the budget process, of course. So, we can go to the next slide. Just so everyone's aware, the letter is gonna be the official commission stance. So you can take elements of the letter, in your conversations. If you're having conversation with the commissioner, with anyone, you can take elements of that letter and use those talking points. You can represent the commission in those respects. For advocacy in any of those conversations, you can also draft your own letters and comments from that letter, so you could send it, and add to that, some more voices, more support. It always helps. But please be sure to be clear if you're steering away from something that's in the letter, that it's your own stance. This is where we get to, as a representative of the commission, we have what we will vote for as our stance, that will be in the letter. And then if you have conversations, or you have your own personal views, make sure you state there are your own personal views. Elaine's gonna put a link. And it'll be all the budget meetings. So if you want to go to a budget meeting and offer public testimony and talk about the things we vote on in a letter, that'd be great.
Okay.
Also, I want to thank Co-Chair Issa, Commissioner Angus, Maya, and Vivek for drafting the initial letter, and for the folks that sent in amendments, especially Commissioner Dana for providing a lot of feedback and amendments. So now we're gonna have discussion and vote to approve any amendments. Next slide, please. Okay. We're gonna, any other amendments that come up, we're gonna share them in the chat. Then we'll raise our Zoom hands to discuss, and then we'll vote to adopt the amendments. We'll talk about any questions that may come up. So if Wing can share his screen, their screen with all of the draft. Here we go. There we go. So I'll facilitate discussion. I think the first ones are the ones that Commissioner Dana sent in. So, Commissioner Dana, did you want to speak to any of those, or?
Yeah, Commissioner Dana, I'm going to put in the chat an updated track change document. And I wanted one of the comments that I had was just specifically that I think it's important at this time. It's a very critical budget time. A lot of decisions are going to be made in the near term about the capacity, the operational capacity of this office, this team to do this work. And we are a volunteer body, and there's 2 staff currently to really be trying to implement a lot of these recommendations. And then by the C40 commitment that the city has made to try to have a climate action plan by the end of 2027, that's a year and a half away. This is a significant body of work that really needs to be resourced. And I think this is an important time for us to make a very specific request and ask for that to be reviewed within a time frame And also to kind of Vivian's discussion earlier, to also make the point of having, to codify more centralized authority for the chief sustainability officer to have the ability to work across the different bureaus to have influence over work plans of existing staff. From my understanding and talking to City of Portland staff, most of the climate work that is being done is existing programs and existing projects. There's not capacity to do new work. This is a citywide climate action plan that's going to require a significant amount of engagement and coordination with the Multnomah County, a lot of analysis. For context, working at Metro, we're doing an internal operations update to our sustainability plan. We have about 3 staff working on that, and we have a budget of over 100,000 annually, and that's just internal. That's just our own operations. This plan is going to be external. It's internal operations as well as the entire city's plan. So just for context, I think it's important that we ask for very specific amount of resources, and I'll put it in the chat. Welcome to have any, discussion or changes to that. I just wanted to throw something out there for us to work on, with the understanding that we want to move forward and have something by the end of this discussion. So I will put that in there, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Commissioner Dana, and I do appreciate your direction that you submitted for the letter. Commissioner Vivek, you had a comment?
Yeah, as you're looking at Commissioner Dana's comments, I just want to make a couple of just overarching comments before you start digging into this. Since I was partly responsible, along with Commissioner Maya and Commissioner Angus, in developing parts or kind of drafting this. But before I get into that, I will say from my previous experience on city commissions, these letters really matter. We have done letters internally or documents internally for our own operations. But what I've found is that this letter can really provide the Chief Sustainability Officer's office to advocate for and really move an agenda that we are all standing behind. So it really lends itself, because we end up being representing the community at large. It ends up carrying more weight than I ever imagined a single letter could. And I've seen that happen over and over. And it's like, oh, let's put some effort into this. This being our, I think, inaugural letter. This may be a monumental moment that we're actually going external with ourselves. So I'd love for us to take this seriously. And I just want to comment that we wanted to keep it short, real pithy, really to the point, and making very clear ask of council and the mayor, so, and the administrator. Just leave it at that. So we don't want to add too much language to this and kind of diffuse it, but really be very pithy and clear, and hopefully with a time, with a clock there.
Thank you.
That's it.
Commissioner Charity?
Hi, yes, thank you, Commissioner Charity. Can you scroll down? There were more suggestions in this, right? That had, so that I can't note down. We are only looking at Dana's question right here for consideration and action is something to change, or were there more? I guess not, just this then. Just this one change? Okay.
No, there are more on the line, towards the bottom.
There's a comment.
You can,
box on the
you can look at it online. You can see.
Yes, I know, but I wanted to ask if we could just see it on the screen right now. So, okay, so I just wanted to be clear what at this point we were wanting to comment on, because I did not see them all up there. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think for a couple of things, we'll probably just vote on some of those changes one by one to make it easier, so because you can't see them all at once. I will add to what Commissioner Vivek said. We don't want the letter to get too long, but we've also received feedback that it might be better for the letter to have some detail in it, to have specific asks in order to get the needle moved towards those asks. So it's gonna be playing that game of putting those in without making the letter too long. So the first thing that was added. Now I can't read it because it's tiny. for consideration and action, was the first addition that Commissioner Dana added. We're just gonna tackle them one by one. Is that a change that anyone has any comments or discussion on? That's not a change? Oh, I thought it was that. Oh, that's why I can't read the comments, because it's tiny. Try to zoom in.
No, really hard.
For the record, this is Wayne Grabowski, PPS meeting support. So the way that we've been doing this flow with document editing is that commissioners will talk about the changes that they want to made, and then those changes will be put into the chat directly. I'll be able to then cut and paste those changes from the chat into the document after discussion has been had about the changes themselves. That way I'm certain as, and everyone else is certain as to the nature of the change. And I have the specific and exact language that is desired to be added in the chat to place into the document. That way I don't do any independent decision-making for you as far as just transferring that language into the document.
So for consideration and action, thank you, Wayne. The language that was sent in was in the development, edit to for consideration in development of the city's next climate action plan. So just to clarify the highlighted action for consideration action.
To add for what? So, but do you have a proposal for what?
I do, I'm having technical difficulties sharing it in the chat or sending it to allowing it to be uploaded. So I'm working on that right now.
I think we can't look at that right yet then.
So
We look at another.
Yeah, just this is Wayne Grabowski. And then again, for the record, just to repeat, we're having some technical difficulties here where we can't enter anything into the chat actively, and I'm not sure how to resolve that.
Text, it won't allow you to put it.
I see. Okay, so what was said is if you're cut and pasting too much text, it won't allow it.
Yeah, but if you can't upload the document, I guess I could do it in chunks. I'm gonna email it to Wing.
okay, so is there, while we wait for that to be worked out so we can get this moving, are there any other comments or discussion or questions, amendments that anyone else would like to offer while Commissioner Dana is working on hers? Commissioner Carla?
Commissioner Carla, she, her, it's more a comment, and I know that's gonna come up. I also felt like unclear of the ask, but maybe I just need kind of some clarification of what should be in the letter. Like, should we be specific staffing of, I don't know, X amount of people or a budget to be able to do X, Y, Z, you know, like more descriptive of the ask of the letter.
Yes, and I think, yes, like Elaine put in the chat, that's one of the specifics that Commissioner Dana has proposed is a specific ask. And I believe we will get to it, but as a preview. Oh, right, I don't have it. What? Commissioner Charity.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm a little bit leery actually of having a specific number of FTE when haven't heard from Vivian or others about what the need might be. And or a budget number because I don't know what staffing would be. And in my experience, sometimes on like legislative work, well-meaning people put numbers in that become limiting or the wrong number. And if I don't really know what the FTE ask should be or what the budget associated with that would be, I think that's too specific for a letter like this. That's just kind of where I would land on getting too specific.
Thank you. I will say that we have heard that we should be more specific. Do you, Elaine, or anyone else want to talk to that? Or Vivian?
Vivian, CSO. I think this is neither an art, this is like a bit of the, is it the art or the science of what to ask? I think that at this point in the budget consideration, that specificity would be helpful in terms of the ballpark. And I do think that Commissioner Dana has offered at least one example of from a neighboring jurisdiction of what that work can look like. Of course, I don't think there's an expectation to cost out like, hey, we need this much FTE, but assuredly, putting out just, some, an idea, especially from neighboring jurisdictions of the kind of effort this could take, and then and the associated resources in order to meet that level of specificity, I think would be helpful.
Thank you. And you see that there's been some information from the chat that you can all start looking into.
Are we gonna see that in a whole, or should we be putting it together ourselves, chat by chat?
Commissioner Galen?
Hi, Commissioner Galen, he, him. Just a little bit of context. I know we mentioned the timing of this letter and making sure that it's effective in this process. I don't know if anyone has any context about how quickly we want to have this wrapped up and sent out so that it is the most effective, trying to be not have perfection be the enemy of good. If anyone has any context for that.
Thank you. And I think we are having a little difficulty with people understanding where things are gonna fit in or what changes could be made. So it might be easier if Commissioner Dana, you read the sections that are changing and what you will propose to change, to add into it.
This is Wayne Grabowski for the record. I wonder if I could propose that we read through each section of the letter and propose changes to it that way. I noted that the changes I've pasted from Dana's document are including all the previous text as well as the changes. How does that sound though? First paragraph, review together, make changes, move on, second paragraph, and I feel like that will get to Dana's changes and everybody else's as well.
Yeah, that I wanted to go step by step, so let's just do it that way. Since I'm not sure exactly where everything fits in. Do you have something, Commissioner Vivek?
Commissioner Vivek, I like that idea if we had another 35, 40 minutes. I think we have limited time and I think we need to just really focus in on kind of, are there any glaring major issues with the first paragraph, second paragraph, and then the piece that Commissioner Dana is bringing up to really hone in on that. There's a lot of richness in these three suggestions that I think we have to resolve, the general versus specific issue that Commissioner Charity brought up and that we're trying to figure out right now. This proposal on the table is three very specific asks. It sounds like CSO Vivian is supportive of it. And so I'm advocating for just kind of honing in on those three and seeing if there are issues in those three that we need to resolve. Because there's other material that's kind of buffering this, but yeah, not to redo the whole letter is all I'm suggesting.
Commissioner Dana, would you say that's a fair characterization that those big three that they put in are probably your most important changes?
Yes, Commissioner Dana, I'm gonna put in the chat the very first one. This is the lead up to it. We can get into the wordsmithing, but basically I took the bottom part of the letter and adjusted it to try to keep it to one page. And I can put in the text that leads into it. I'll read just that part first. It is, the clock is ticking for Portland to respond to the climate crisis. That's in the letter currently. Delayed action undermines city resilience, economic prosperity, and trust from frontline communities whose health and livelihoods are put at risk daily. And I have the edit of if instead of when, if climate commitments remain symbolic. Then the next sentence I am deleting and to have this lead in of a request. The commission stands ready and eager to fulfill our mandate and request the following. And then I put that in the chat. The first one is expand operational capacity, allocate 4 to 5 new full-time employee FTE and 500,000 in annual ongoing funding to support climate implementation. I'm throwing that out as a number, we can talk about, this is just based on my experience of what goes into climate action planning and what, if to really do a good job with it, and to the extent of what I think that the city has goals and wants to do. The second one I'll put in, this is new text that is not in there before, and I'll put it in the chat currently, and then I'll read it out. Second piece, and believe it or not, does stay to one page, is codify centralized authority, grant the CSO formal authority to collaborate directly with deputy chief administrators and bureau directors to align and direct the work plans of subject matter experts. As a peer to leadership, the CSO must have the mandate to ensure cross-bureau accountability. That's I think a direct response to the recommendations that the auditors made. And then the third point is more around timing because of the concern of just this is budget season and decisions will be made that will have big impact that won't come up again for another year. Third, expedite budgetary review, provide a formal response to this request within 30 days to ensure essential resources are integrated into the current budget cycle. And then the last paragraph, which I believe is pretty similar to what it was before, is this budget cycle is a critical decision point. City leaders must support the work of the CSO, Sustainability Office, and Commission to enable Portland to regain its position as a global leader in climate action and justice.
Thank you, Commissioner Dana. So what we're gonna do is look at this, because this is the biggest changes that are in both of it. If we have time, then we'll go back and see those little tweaks that are in the other paragraphs. But if we don't, this is what I want to make sure we can get done and still vote on the letter so we can get the vote out. I hope that process works for everyone. So does anyone have any comments on these very specific acts that Commissioner Dana just proposed? Commissioner Stephanie?
Commissioner Stephanie, District 3, she, her. I actually fully support these. I'm happy with the wording, and I would just recommend that we do not need to do anything more with that little question at the end of the opening paragraph, because this, where it says consideration and action, because this is the answer to that. So that was just raising a question. It wasn't actually a suggested edit. So I think we could dispense with it, and I'm fully in support of her recommendations.
Commissioner Dana?
Thank you, Commissioner Stephanie. And one of the edits that I didn't add to this one was actually to take that out, the consideration and action. So that's, I think we're in alignment there, and that just, I think, makes it cleaner.
Commissioner Charity?
Hi, yes, Commissioner Charity, thank you. This is just like, I totally agree on having staffing, but I would not vote for having specific number of FTE and the budget to support that, because I don't know that those are the right numbers. And just what I know about budgeting for staffing and all personnel costs, I think that's too small a number for 4 to 5 employees, and I wouldn't want to limit that like this. So I don't like that, and I wouldn't. I actually thought the letter as it is was fine. So I'm not sure how then to manage that.
Thank you. And just for clarification, the way I read it is 45 FT plus $500,000 in resources. So it's not 500,000 for including the FT. So the $500,000 would cover things like consultants, because when you do this kind of work, there's always studies and economic analysis, climate budgeting, you need facilitator for different things. There are a lot of expenses that are not just FTE expenses. That, to me, that's what that reads that this is for. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but that's when you plan engagement activities, there's costs that have to do with maybe securing a venue or all those kinds of things, right? All those things add up cost, so you need a budget in addition to your FTE. I agree that $500,000, I don't know if that's even enough, but also in a hard budget year, what can we ask? Commissioner Vivek?
Hi, Commissioner Vivek, real quick, just to get at Commissioner Charity's concern, I guess I'd ask the city staff, is a letter like this a precedent setting in terms of an ask that's made? Or do you need to flesh out a lot more details and kind of come up with a programmatic kind of justification for making numbers like this?
Vivian Satterfield, CSO. Certainly, I do not believe that advisory bodies, well, I'm not unaware of other advisory bodies writing letters and the degree of specificity that they offer. I simply just am, I do not know the answer to that question. I certainly don't believe that any advisory body would be expected to come up with programmatic parameters in a recommendation letter. I do believe this conversation really should be had amongst commissioners for you all to decide whether you want to, what level of specificity you'd like to have in this letter on this point.
And I will say, with the Government Transition Advisory Committee, we didn't do suggestions on budget, but we gave specific suggestions to the, how many people should sit on what committees, how many committees the new form of government should have. We gave very specific recommendations based on all our research. We laid out charts of cities and what size and how many committees they had and how many commissioners they had, and we had all that information, and from that, we gave recommendations that we thought would be good for Portland. So very specific ones. That some they really went with and some they didn't at all. And I testified in front of council that I was concerned that some of the choices that went against our recommendations were gonna prove to be poor, but they went with them anyway. And then now they're redoing the structure. So sometimes you should listen to the groups that tell you specific things. So sometimes we ask for specific things for a reason. We have knowledge there. I do agree with Commissioner Charity that we don't know for sure what we need. But I'm afraid if we don't ask for anything specific, they'll give us way, way less. Right? Commissioner Jessica?
Yeah, Commissioner Jessica, District 1, she, her. I'm wondering if we could compromise and perhaps adapt that to say something to the effect of maybe removing specific numbers or staff numbers or values, but say, we defer, we recommend staffing this office appropriately, commensurate with other cities of this size, and we defer to the CSO to provide you with the specific requirements that she sees fit. So we're, underscoring the import, but without actually throwing a number behind it.
Would you like to come up with language that fits what you said? Thank you. I think there are two camps right now, like specifics, and thank you for Commissioner Dana for trying to give us specifics. And by looking, I think Commissioner Dana looked at Metro in different places and the expenses there and tried to see what we would have to spend. So I appreciate that. I want to see with hands, because we only have 10 minutes left, 5 minutes left, 5 minutes left. Who wants the specifics to be included in? So if you want specifics, please, if you want specifics, like these are the FTE and this amount of money, even if they're not perfect, who wants actual specifics in the letter? Please raise your hand. Because then we know which direction we want to go to.
Sorry.
Well, is that 10 of or specific?
For specific.
Well,
Perhaps with
okay.
Jessica's.
So 12 is a majority. So we're gonna keep specifics. Now, everyone lower your hand. And I'm gonna ask another question. Are we okay with the specifics that Commissioner Dana has provided of 4 to 5 FTE plus 500,000 yearly budget? If you're okay with that specific, please raise your hand. Okay, I count 11. I count 11, which is again, a majority. Okay, so that way we can move on. We're gonna keep those specific. Thank you, Commissioner Dana, for providing with something. Again, they're gonna talk about this and budget how they see fit. So this is just a framework. And now, are there, Commissioner Issa? Co-Chair Issa? Oh, legacy hand. Is that legacy hand or you have a comment? Commissioner Stephanie?
No.
Okay, perfect. Okay, now that we got that, are there, are we okay with the language that Commissioner Dana proposed to change that middle section?
Do you mean points 2 and 3 or?
Yes, points 1, yeah, 2 and 3. I guess we agreed to 1, so 2 and 3. Are we okay with points 2 and 3 and kind of the rewording of the paragraphs around it that Commissioner Dana has done to make those fit into the letter? Does anyone have any discussion before I put that up for a vote? No. Okay, so raise your hand if you're okay with that language to be added in. Now 14. Keep your hands up. And I will call roll call vote for the overall letter. For the amendments, I'm just doing this so we can move quickly. So these changes pass. Thank you, Commissioner Dana. Please keep your hands up until Lane says we can put it back down. Okay, we're good. Okay, you can put it back down now. Okay, now, there's other little changes, Commissioner Dana, did you propose to the letter? The first one was taking that question out from the first paragraph. I think that was also backed up by Commissioner Stephanie. Is that still a change you're proposing? To change
Yes.
the first one? Okay. And Wing has that, correct? Yes, okay. Raise your hand if, wait, before I go, does anyone have any questions or discussion about that? It's changing that end part of the first paragraph, crossing out for consideration action, because we're putting now action right before instead of just saying. Okay. No questions? Okay. Raise your hand if you're okay with that change. And keep them up until Lane tells us otherwise. About 17. But please keep them up. Are there, we're almost out of time. Commissioner Dana, are there any other big changes you think need to be made to this letter to have it work, or anyone else? If it's a minor thing and you can live with the current language, live with the current language.
Can we see what the end, if it includes the end? And I also see that Commissioner Charity's hand is up, so.
Should we lower our hands?
Yes, everyone lower your hand because I can't tell who has a question, who has hands. Okay, there are no hands up. Oh, Commissioner Maya.
Commissioner Maya, I just want to, I don't know if we're like sticking with the old language or what, but I do think we should keep it as when climate commitments remain symbolic, because I believe people are already being impacted by climate impacts, especially frontline communities. And to say if, as if it's not happening, I think doesn't speak to the gravity of the situation.
So when instead of if?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. Does anyone? Yeah, that's really good. Does anyone? Okay, raise your hand if you agree with that edit. That'll be the easiest. On 17, please keep your hands up until Elaine tells you otherwise. And now I'm taking no more edits because we're out of time. But I think that the amendments and changes have made this letter a lot better. So I appreciate working through this process very quickly. And again, I know I've thanked you like 17 times, but I'll thank you again, Commissioner Dana, for helping craft this, and Commissioner Maya and Vivek, Commissioner Angus, and Co-Chair Issa for drafting the original letter. And now, are we good with, okay, now we're gonna do a roll call for the actual letter, because I think it's important for us to have a roll call, but I don't have a list of commissioners, so Elaine, can you? Commissioner Damon, do you have a question, or is that legacy?
Sorry, legacy.
Yeah, it's all good. Always double check. Okay. Now we're voting for the whole letter as amended. Commissioner Alina. Please unmute and say yes, stand aside, or no. Reminders. Stand, yes, stand aside, or no.
Yeah. Stand aside only because of the 500,000. I just feel like if we're asking, we should be asking for more because that could be limiting, but otherwise, approve overall.
Thank you. Commissioner Angus is absent. Commissioner Celeste.
Commissioner Celeste, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Charity.
Commissioner Charity also stand aside because I don't think that language should be in the letter.
Thank you. Commissioner Damon.
I stand aside for the same reasons as the other two.
Thank you. Commissioner Dan.
Dan, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Dana.
Sorry, Dana, yes.
Thank you. Co-Chair Issa.
Co-Chair Issa, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Galen.
Yes.
Commissioner Greg.
Yes.
Commissioner Jessica.
Yes.
Commissioner Leah.
Yes.
Commissioner Luna is absent. Commissioner Maya.
Stand aside.
And Commissioner Nora. Absent. Commissioner Carla.
Yes.
Commissioner Stephanie.
Yes.
Commissioner Sue's online.
Yes.
Commissioner Vivek.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Thank you. That passes with 12 yeses, but everyone, sanitides are also kind of yeses, so still passes. Thank you, everyone. I know this was probably a faster process than we wanted, but it is a fast process, a budget process, so it's a good experience.
Will we get,
Go ahead.
will we get the final letter?
Yes, the final letter will be emailed out. And if you are gonna talk to someone, please let us know. Please let Elaine, the co-chairs, know that you'll be talking to someone. We can also talk about the talking points. I mentioned some of the things that money can go towards just speaking, but there's a lot of other talking points that can come from this letter. So please reach out so we can help. And just as a reminder that I'll pass it off to.
Yeah, so next slide. Yeah, so for the agenda, we have a commissioner feedback form. Yeah, so please remember to fill out the feedback form that Elaine will send in the Zoom chat now. We go through the feedback and make changes based on the things you tell us. Next slide. And so for some reminders and next steps, our next regular meeting is on May 21st. Just a reminder also that interviews are happening next week for our next cohort, and our last official meeting with this youth cohort will be next month. And Commissioner Celeste will again be part of the next youth cohort alongside 4 new members. Also, happy Earth Day, and thank you for attending tonight's meeting.
work. That would have been hard to do a few months ago, but